morning everyone, and welcome back to Craft Eccentricity, and today is Tutorial Tuesday, and as I said yesterday, we're going to turn the Nicole planner die from Surprise Creation into a vintage film strip. So this is the die that I'm going to be using today, and as you can see, you've got your planner page, which is the back die, and then you've got the film strip. Now, I am going to use some colour as well because I don't want to go too dark and dingy, if you know what I mean. I need a sheet of cardstock for what I'm going to do so that it's going to highlight anything you can see and catch any of my messes. I've got one of Aliexpress's silicone mats there, which is useful for all sorts of things. I'm going to use this set of butterfly stamps from Aliexpress. I'm going to use these pens, which are Posca paint pens, and that's where I'm going to add my colour. I've got black, white and sky blue in the Posca, and also a Sharpie fine liner from Dollar Tree, which is really useful. I'm going to be using Alina's embossing powder in clear, Alina's narrow adhesive tape, and Alina Crafts embossing ink. What else am I going to use? It's a lot today. Versifying Claire in black, and I'm also going to be using my large stamp platform, if I can grab it, which is this one. I love the Tim Holtz stamping platform, and I do actually have both sizes, and I just need to pop it out of the way somewhere where it's not going to fall on the floor. Hang on a second. Right, I got that out of the way. And what else have I got on my desk? Oh yes, we're going to use the AliExpress mousse or cake wrap, which is acetate on a roll. I love this stuff. It's great for doing shaker windows. So you haven't seen me get that out for a while, so that's good. And yes, we're going to be using alcohol blending solution. I'm going to be using 3 alcohol inks, and I'm using teak wood, which is one of my favorites, pitch black, and sunshine. I think it's called sunshine yellow. Yes, sunshine yellow. And these are Tim Holtz Ranger alcohol inks, and also a blending tool. This one is specifically for alcohol ink, and you can see how yucky and dushed up it is, and a piece of felt. Now you can use felt from Walmart, which is 25 cents a sheet, and cut your own pieces up, and it's exactly the same stuff. Right, I think I've done and shown everything that we're using today, so I'm going to go off and I'm going to die cut. Right, so while I was away, obviously I've moved everything so that you can see what's going on down on the surface. And for the planner page itself, I've chosen this piece of vintage cardstock, which is just plain white on the back. And I can cut a black one and, you know, line it so that it's a bit more sturdy. And I've cut the frame, and what I did was I used, I think it's called black cat paper, and it's from Joanne, and it's absolutely awful stuff. If you're going to die cut small things, it's fine, but for big things it's too flimsy. So I've actually cut 3 and glued them together. So that's probably the equivalent weight now, I would say, of 300, 350 GSM. And I'm hoping it's going to stay flat for what I want to do with it. But first of all, I'm going to concentrate on the back section, and I need to know, and also when you're doing this, remember to line your film strip up with your page, because you've got these little notches, and if you get it upside down, you'll be upset once you've put all your work into it. So line those up, and we've got the notches there, and what I want to find is roughly the center of those panels. Now, as I said, I'm going to be using these Posca paint pens, which are opaque, so putting a couple of marks down on this doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to assess where the center of the windows are. So if I just line that up, and I'm just going to put a little dot there and a little dot there. You won't see these. And then I'm going to go there. So I roughly know where to put my stamps so that they're going to look good through that window there. Right, now I need to move that out of the way without squishing it, which is something that I'm prone to do, and get my stamp platform. In fact, I don't even know if I need my stamp platform. I might just run off and get a stamp block. Hang on just a second. So actually I changed my mind and I decided I am going to use the stamp platform, and the first thing I'm going to do is stamp my small butterfly stamp. And you saw that I put my dots, which are basically center of where that film strip will be, and I want this kind of a little bit natural at a jaunty angle. It doesn't bother me if any elements of the butterflies are going to be missing, but I am going to stamp and colour one at a time, and there's a reason for that you'll see in a minute. So let's get the VersaFine Clair is what I'm using, and I'm just going to lift that up. I've got my planner page tucked into the corners there, so I don't need to use any magnets because I kind of roughly know what's what. So I'm just dabbling on my ink and close the lid without hitting the camera. And I'm going to leave that there for a second and push. Right, you can see that. That's a great stamped impression. Now, I've got to do my stamps one at a time. So I'm just going to move my stamp platform out of the way. I'm going to put that down there. Whoops. I'm going to keep the stamp in the position where it's at. And I'm going to go in with my markers. Now, these paint markers are brilliant. You have to give them a good shake. They are wonderfully opaque, and all I can say is don't be scared of them. Just get some and enjoy them. Now, they come in many colours and they are not cheap. Right, so don't worry about colouring over the lines when you're doing this. See, it's a good solid colour. So I'm going all over this wonderful blue, just into those pieces there. And you'll find that the paint flows really, really nicely from these pens. Now, they do say that these paint pens are not meant to go on paper, but I just ignore that. Because if you overwork them, it can make your paper pill up. And all I can say is, you know, go gently over the surface, and you'll find that you'll be absolutely okay putting paint down onto paper. It's because of the nib. The nib is, I don't know if I can get a close up there. It's a little bit rough textured because they're meant for like plastics and glass and fabrics and various other surfaces. So not necessarily meant for paper, even though we do. I actually love to use them on the jelly plate because you can put down some really delicate little dots and doodles and things if you've got a jelly plate. And I've got 2 jelly plates. I actually bought them when they first launched them, and I had many, many weeks of fun and thousands of sheets of copy paper, and it was great. And actually I need to get them out again because I've got lots of little bits of Michael's paints that I want to use up, and then I can go and get fresh ones. In fact, I saw some really lovely ones online which were just in gorgeous candy colours, so it would be nice to replace and and get those right. You can see what I've got here, and you can see that that paint is very opaque. Once it's dry, you can go over with a second one if you want to, and I'm going to do the edges with white. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm showing you this butterfly, then I'm going to go away and do the others, because you know me, I'm always watching my clock. And I know that what you're thinking now is she just stamped that lovely butterfly and she's gone all over the details. But you'll see what it is in a minute. And of course, if I go quiet, it's because I'm having fun. It's not because I'm ignoring you. It's because I've got my tongue hanging out the side of my mouth. I always do that when I'm concentrating. Funny habit that I've had since I was a child. And also, when you're doing things like this, don't worry if you go outside of the main line, because that can look good too. So here we go. All around the edge and into that bit. Just don't worry about a thing. Just get stuck in and have fun. I absolutely love crafting. I actually go to sleep thinking about crafting, and even when I'm out shopping, I have to tell you, buying a haul or something like that, which you know is to do with crafting, I'm always thinking about getting back to my craft room. I just absolutely love it. There, I think that's, you can see that that is painted, and it's I'll pick it up in a minute. It's quite a, oh, I forgot to shake. It's quite a sort of matte chalk paint type finish from a Posca paint pen. And there are other paint markers out there which are a lot cheaper, but I just don't know what quality they are. I know that I like Posca. So that looks very rough and very scratchy. But I'm going to wave it around just for a minute and I'll be back. Okay, so that's dry, and really it does. It only takes a couple of seconds of just, you know, waving it through the air to make it dry. So you can see what it looks like. It looks a bit of a rough mess. Now, we left the stamp where it was, and I know that this butts up into the corner. So I know where I'm going again. And I'm going back in with the VersaFine ink, and we're going to stamp now over the paint. So that will give you all your lovely detail back. It's a great way of colouring and stamping. People have been doing it this way for years. I'm trying to think who the first person was. I think it was a company called Paper Artsy that first showed people how to do this. And we're talking quite a few years ago. So now you've got that fabulous detail back over a matte opaque surface, and it's almost, I mean, you could cast a shadow under there with a grey marker if you wanted to, but I just think that looks awesome. So anyway, you've seen that I've got my dot marks where I'm going to place my other butterflies. We're already into 13 minutes. So what you just saw me do here, I'm going to do with my other two butterfly stamps down here, and I will be right back. Right, so I've done this one, and you can see that's all blotchy again, and I've got my stamp there on the platform, got my silicone mat there just because I like to keep the platform clean. Excuse my throat. Going back in with my VersaFine Claire, stamping that up. Make sure I've got those antennae, and make sure that is in the corner, and then I'm going to bring this down without hitting the camera. There we go. Give it a good squeeze. I like to let it sit for a minute. And there we have our next butterfly. See, I've gone off the page with that one. Just move my platform out of the way for a second. And that doesn't bother me because it's going to give some nice interest when the frame goes back on. You can see that's going to be sort of like hidden in there. So it's just going to be part of a butterfly that you're going to see. And I really like that. Right, I'm going to do the next one and then we'll come back to make this bit vintage. Right, so just a quick recap on what has been done here. And we've used the Posca paint pens to colour the butterflies, and I used the Dollar Tree Sharpie fine liner so that I could find the centres. Right, so I can move those out of the way, and this is how it looks within its frame. Now, as I said to you before, make sure you get your frame the right way around, and that is basically the image. Whoops. Once we've completed that you're going to see coming through. I just think that's really pretty. I love the opacity against a printed paper, and of course you can use Posca on acetate, so you can like reverse color and use stays on. So this piece is finished and we need to work on this, so I'm just going to go off and wash my craft mat so we can get on to the next bit. Right, so I wiped my mat off with a bit of kitchen paper. Still a bit yucky, but it's black, so it doesn't really matter. Nothing's going to show up on that. And I figure the best way to get a nice shiny finish on this cardstock is to use embossing ink and clear embossing powder. Because, of course, when you look at film strips, they're shiny. They are, you know, one strip of solid plastic, whatever they're made of. So on my mat here, I've taken this off and I'm just going to use the pad bare all over it and put embossing ink down on this entire strip. Now, obviously, you never want to overdo. I'm not pushing really hard here. I'm just doing it until I can see a slight shine on top of the cardstock. Any bits I've missed, I can go back in and do a second round with the embossing powder. So just very gently tapping it, and I'm looking at the light from my window here and I can see a very slight sheen sitting on the surface. So what I'm going to do before that dries into the cardstock is move that away and go in with my embossing powder. Now, of course, as you know, you can just throw this all the way over everything because you've got it on a scrap of cardstock and you can just pop, that's one of my hairs, pop everything back into the jar so you're not wasting it. I don't know about you, but I remember the first time I ever saw embossing many years ago and somebody did this, I thought, oh my goodness me, you know, like £4 at the time, quid English money for a pot of embossing powder. And I thought, they've just chucked all that out and they've wasted it, you know, that empty pot. But no, they had it on a scrap of cardstock, and you just learn as you go along, don't you? That's the best thing to do. Right, now up on its edges, as I say, my finger just went through that bit. That doesn't bother me because I can touch it up if it's so I'm just tapping that off and popping that down on my mat. I just want to get this bit back in the bottle. I'm doing it quietly in case I throw it all over the table or sneeze. That would be good, wouldn't it? Right, and I've got a little bit of excess there as well. Just tap that, pop that down. And then I do have my trusty old heat gun at my side, which is many years old, and hopefully it won't sound too loud when I switch it on. Right, put the lid back on that, move that out of the way. I'm dragging this just to the edge of the mat, and now I'm going to emboss it. Right, it's large enough that it's not going to fly away, so I don't think I need anything to hold it down, and I really hope that it's not going to warp too much, but I am going to pick this up and show you when it's done. It could need a second going over. I'm not entirely sure. It is buckling slightly, but that's okay. We're going to use some tape to stick it down when we're finished. So I don't know if you're one of those that sort of like does this. Don't do that. Just hold it until you see it melt and then move on. I'm coming down here. And it has got that lovely rippled sheen that you see on vintage film strips, which is quite nice. I think there's a bit there that's it. I haven't quite done enough on it. And it hasn't buckled too badly actually, doing this in 3 layers, so I've impressed myself with that one. And then just a quick zoom over just to make sure that I haven't missed anything. And I think 1 layer is oh, I think I missed a bit here, is going to be enough. Yeah, I think I'm going to be happy with 1 layer. I hope you could hear what I was saying. Right, so if I pick that up, you can see it did not warp badly at all. You can see it's got that gorgeous, gorgeous shine on it. Let's see if we can get close-ups. You'll be able to see if I've missed a bit. So it's almost like orange peely, which is really nice. Really like that. So now I'm just going to have to tidy my table, but you know, there's another bit down and done. So you've got that lovely glossy finish. Right, just going to clean up my mess and I'll be right back to do the inner film strip section. Right, so that was a quick little tidy up, and this is the film strip, and of course I want to be able to stick down between those borders, which is why I'm using this thin tape here from Alina Craft, and it's going to go up in this section here. So I need to be able to measure that so that I can cut my mousse wrap to fit, and that it will fit within that border. So first of all, got to measure it, and then I'm going to cut a piece off and go and use my guillotine, I think. So get my ruler the right way around, and I really do want to work within those borders, and we are looking at just under 2.5 inches, and then the length of that I can go all the way up to that bit, so that doesn't matter. 8.25. So I would probably cut that at 8. So I'm going to go 8 by, just in case you're going to do this at home, 8 by 2.5, and I will be back. So I've cut my strip here 8 by 2.5, picked up a little bit of fluff of you know, paper off my guillotine, but never mind. I flipped the film reel over, and on the back of it, that's where I'm going to be running my tape. I will pick this up so that you can see it a bit better. It's sliding out of my hands, but I think you understand what I mean. That is going to be, because it's transparent at the moment, there you go. I'm going to run my tape down and stick it on the back, and I will be right back. Right, so I put adhesive on and I've just started rolling it down. You can see there, and I've also put adhesive in these areas. Now, I think it's going to work out better for me to move my bits a bit at a time and roll it so that I'm kind of like keeping it as straight as I can. It doesn't bother me if little bits are sticking out, you know, through those little cut apart holes. I mean, obviously, I think that I could have cut it a little bit shorter, but then you run the risk of having gaps. And I don't want a gappy film strip. That's all I'm going to say. So I'm just pulling that nice and tight as I go. Pull those bits out, and then that should go all the way to there. Now if I flip that over, you can see it's covered in fingerprints, which is great. I'm going to use a piece of kitchen paper in a minute, but you can see you've got your shiny film outer, and now you've got your shiny inner. Right, so first of all, quick wipe with kitchen paper. Let's see if we can lift up some of that yuck, because it is a little bit static, and of course going over the guillotine you get little bits of paper dust and whatnot every time you cut paper, but yeah, it doesn't really bother me because it is supposed to be vintage. Right, got a little bit of black fluff there. Right, and now what we're going to be doing is working on the back of this. So this is the reverse, and we've got to think about our images, which of course are the butterflies, and how we're going to be able to view them. So what I am going to do is, first of all, I'm going to go in with my teak wood, it's called. It's one of my favorite inks. It is quite dark and dingy, but I've got the sunshine yellow to liven it up. And I like to take the caps off everything before I start, because if you've had alcohol inks for a long time, which is what I have, you notice that they start to get a little bit crusty, and you don't want that dropping onto your project. So I would just suggest moving them away while you ink up your pad. Right, so I've got some teak brown there. Don't want to overdo it because it is a lovely dark colour. And then I've got some sunshine yellow, and I'm going to put the lid on the sunshine yellow because I know it's that one. You don't want to mix your lids up, otherwise you'll be blending. And just a little bit of blending solution. And now what I want to do is try to stick to the edges. So I want the sort of like deterioration of my film to be in this region. And remember, with alcohol inks, you can always wipe them off. So if you don't like it, you can always start again. And I'm using the browns around the edge. Hope you can see that. I'll put it on a sheet of white cardstock, hoping to improve it. And I am going to go in and smoosh this even more in a minute. Right, so I've gone around the inside of the window, and that's got the teak and the yellow. Now, be brave and get some of that yellow down. And hopefully that's going to mottle into that. I like to create those cells that you see in the ink. Right, now that looks very amber, almost like vintage mica on there. Now it's at this point you start to decide, once it's dry, I'll just, what I'll do is I'll pause for a minute and make sure it's dry and come back and show you. Right, that's okay. And if I flip that over, if you were doing sort of like a black and white photograph or anything behind there, it's going to look absolutely awesome. But I've actually introduced colour, if you remember. And if I've got that the right way around, and I pop that on there, that is probably a little bit too dingy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lighten some of the area up, and I do that by switching out the foam, get rid of that because that's no good to us anymore. I'm going to put a new one on, nice clean one, pop that on there, and I'm going to screw the lid back on this before I forget. And I'm just going to use blending solution now, and I'm going to give myself a halo, I hope. So that's how much I've put on. I've put a round bit just in the middle so the edges are dry, because I want to be able to put this down and just to concentrate in the center. So we're just lightening it up. Can you see it's lifting it? We turn that over, put it down. You see you've got a better window there to start seeing some color through. And it could be that I need to go back again and get myself another clean piece of felt, which is why it's always good to use your felt from Walmart. So I've got those sort of like almost burnt away looking little window pieces there, and even though I know it's not dry, I'm going to kind of like position that to see if I like it. And I think I do like that better, but I'm just going to sort of like soften those just a little bit. The more cells you can put into it, the softer the effect. And you just dab and lift and let it dry. See, you've got all those nice little, almost like crusty little bits, and that is totally different to that. See, that's still sort of like quite well spread out. So I'm just softening it. There, I like that. Right, so now that I like that, I'm going to put tape all the way around again so that we can put it down onto the page, and I will be back. Right, so I've got my tape down, and I just wanted to show you so that you can see how that alcohol ink looks on there, and that's where I've placed my tape. So I'm just going to stick my page down now, and you can see, make sure I've got it the right way around, how that makes the butterflies look a lot more vintage. Now you could of course do the whole thing just in black and white, but I quite like that. And a couple of little cut strip sentiments in the windows, and to me that's just gorgeous. So I'll stick that down and be right back. Right, so I did that, and just to show you a contrast, that's the Easter one that I did last week. So this is a great dye if you're going pale, pastel, pretty, whatever it is you want to do. But just to show you the stark difference there. That one is vintage and that one is pretty. And if I get a close-up, you can see all that lovely, lovely shine. There you go. And I do love that it's kind of orange peely, that embossing powder. I really like that. But as I said, you know, I'll probably put a couple of little strips here before I put it into my planner page. But there's two ways of doing it. I will take a close-up of this so that you can get a better look at it. And I don't know if my camera is going to behave so that you can, there you go, so that you can see the alcohol ink. but do get yourself some Posca pens. Best place to get them from is probably eBay or Amazon. And if you can find a Japanese seller on eBay, they can be even cheaper. Because if you look at my pens, I'm trying to think here. This set doesn't tell you the color. I mean, it's black, but it's got Japan there, and these are also made in Japan, but you've got the color sky blue. So these are actually made and purchased for like the American or the European market, whereas these ones came straight from Japan and they can be cheaper. I mean, I've got quite a few colors, and the size that I prefer, I've got them all the same size. These are 3M is what they call them. And yeah, there it is, PC3M. And I get all my Poscas in that size. I do have a bunch of golden paint pen markers too, and that some of those are really huge. You can cover a huge sheet of paper in just a couple of seconds. And of course the Sharpie, $1 from Dollar Tree, but you can do so many lovely things with those, and it can make stamping quite interesting. So I do thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed that, and that you yourself can find some way of utilizing it in your crafting. Right, as usual, all links are below. And tomorrow, I think I'm going to be up with Sparkly Pretty. You have an absolutely awesome day. Bye.